everything I hope to be. I am one step closer to the finish line. I know that every stride would lead me to my destiny, and I'm one reach away from taking what is mine. I believe that I'm unstoppable. I believe I've only just begun. I will conquer, I will fly, reach my peak, I will. And there's nothing that can ever bring me down. I believe that dreams are tameable. And I believe that wings were made to fly. I'll touch the sky, reach for the stars, do the impossible. I believe that nothing can. I believe that nothing will. I believe nothing will ever bring me down. Oh. I've been down the road where failure seemed familiar. No one thought that I would ever come this far. When everything was telling me that it was over.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of our SGA webinar for September. For this month is a special edition because we'll be making some announcements about our latest partnership with PhET, and then we're also going to be talking about the relevance of simulation in STEAM. Of course, we all know that STEAM means science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And it's becoming a huge trend in the educational sector where students are beginning to hone their creative skills and also learn how to build for the future. So I would like to welcome all of us here today from wherever you're joining. Please, if you are already here watching us live on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, do share and post your comments so that we can also see you. So if you're here already, you can just signify by putting in your favorite emoji, or you can just tell us where you're joining us from. Thank you very, very much. So we'll go straight ahead to welcome our guests. But before we do that, we'd like to welcome one of us, our head of products, Kolade, to give us an opening speech and tell us what we hope to expect in this month's SGA webinar. Kolade, hi, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Hi, everyone. It's really, really great to be here again today. And I'm really excited about some of the things we're going to be learning today. So, as Nena mentioned, I work as the head of products at Edvest. And some of the key things that we'll be looking at today is how a major partnership is coming together. And that is Edvest and PhET coming together to provide a new way to think about STEAM, to think about using technology to power the learning and trainings of science and technology, basically for students in Africa. And we're really excited to come to work together on this partnership where we'll be making teachers in Africa learn a new way of teaching science practicals and a lot of other things that have to do with STEM. And for us as EdVest, we're really excited about this because we know that at the center of learning are the the learning content that needs to get to the student. So that's why we're really excited today that even though today we'll be focusing a lot on science-based learning, you're going to be learning a lot from our panelists who are coming from outside Nigeria to come and train us, to come and train the teachers on how to be able to use this technology. And the beautiful thing is that for all schools that are on EdVest, you would have access to be able to use these simulations for a lot of activities that you use in your classroom on a day-to-day basis. So it's really, I just wanted to encourage everyone to sit back, absorb as much as you can. The 1 hour there, but we're going to be spending here might not be enough to gather everything, but this is the beginning of learning a new way of teaching science in schools, science and technologies in schools in Africa. So I am excited to be here. I'm really, really looking forward to our panelists. Thank you, Nena. You can go on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kolade. Yes, I'm also excited because I stumbled upon PhET as a teacher, a classroom teacher, 6, 7 years ago, and I found it very amazing. As at then, simulation was not as popular as it is in schools currently in Africa, especially. But I was able to use it to stimulate my classroom, and I know that a lot of teachers will find it very interesting in teaching science and mathematics. So I'm so excited about this partnership, and I know that we'll benefit from this session. This is just going to be an introductory session about what PhET is, and then it will lead us to a workshop, a virtual workshop, which will be announced later. But we just need to understand the value of using PhET in the classroom. So I have the PhET team here with me, and I'm so glad to have been interacting with them for over the weeks, like up to a month now, back and forth. And I'm so glad that they took out time to come in here to discuss with us. I would like to introduce the first speaker. The first speaker on our list is Rebecca Vieira. She's in charge of training vets. I'd like her to say hi to us before I read her profile.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm the Associate Director of Global Initiatives for PhET Interactive Simulations, and I'm joining with you today from Washington, D.C. It's the morning here, and I've been using PhET since 2005 myself. I was a teacher before I joined PhET, and I really hope that whatever we can do through our partnership really is as supportive as possible to all the teachers and also to all of your students. Thank you, Nina.
Okay. All right. Welcome, Rebecca. So I'll just read her profile so that we'll get to know the stuff she's made of. So Rebecca supports PhET's international strategy and programming. Previously, she managed the Inter-American Teacher Education Network for the Organization of American States and served as a K-12 program manager for the American Association of Physics Teachers. Rebecca is a Prior High School physics teacher who earned her PhD in science education at the University of Maryland. She received the Presidential Award for Excellence in Math and Science Teaching and is an alumna of the Albert Einstein Distinguished Educator Fellowship. She resides in Washington, D.C. with her husband and daughter. So it's a pleasure having you here, Rebecca. I'm sure that we're going to draw from the wells of your knowledge, and all the experience you've had working with PhET. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay, so the second person I'd like to introduce is an African like us, and he's done a lot of work, promoting STEAM-based learning as well. I'd like to welcome Zachariah Mbasu. He's an African ambassador for PhET. Zachariah, can you say hi to us? Hello, Zachariah.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Okay.
My name is Zach.
All right, so I'll just call you Zach. Yes.
Yes.
All right,
sure.
so I'm going to read Zach's profile now. Zach currently leads PhET Africa's strategy and regional activities. He has spent most of his career based in classroom teaching and learning with young people ages 5 to 18. For most of that time, working in teacher education, school improvement, and learning resource development in parallel. In his previous engagement as an education advisor, he assisted over 3,000 teachers in improving the standard of math teaching and learning in Africa. He's passionate about every learner's potential to engage in STEM subjects in meaningful, exciting, and satisfying ways. He holds a master's degree in statistics from Maseno University and a bachelor's degree in education science from Egerton University. Welcome once again, Zach. So we have powerful speakers here. We have a PhD holder in physics. So I'm sure a lot of teachers, a lot of science teachers are ready to learn from you. And we also have a math expert in the house who is also an African ambassador. Thank you very much for coming. And we know that we'll have a swell time today. So before we start, we're just going to watch a short video introducing PhET and what PhET is really about.
So PhET is a collection of over 100 interactive simulations for teaching and learning science. They're all free on the web. You can run them online. So PhET is a collection of over 100 interactive simulations for teaching and learning science. They're all free on the web. You can run them online or you can download them to your computer. We have simulations in physics and chemistry and a growing number in earth science, biology, and math. One of the main goals of PhET is to provide students with an open exploratory environment where they can really engage with the science content like a scientist.
I love the PhET simulations. I find that they're really fun even for me to play with.
Before it was all on a page, and now you could actually see it. You see what's going on when you connect, two wires and a battery, and you see the flow of each electron and how electrons affected by resistance, and you see everything. That's what I love about it.
One way that I use simulations is I ask clicker questions around them to really focus what students are thinking about and trying to process. Sometimes I'm using it as a demonstration, as a really effective way to describe a dynamic system to the students.
I've used Sims in homeworks. I have used the Sims in tutorials where they play basically the role of some experimental equipment.
Without having to make a mess, so I don't have to take ice and melt it and do all that. We can look, first you see it as a solid, and you see the temperature, and then you can turn it into a liquid, and you can observe the difference on a micro level that matches pretty well what they see at the macro level.
She'd show them to us in class and we'd play with them on our own, and it just gave us a chance to, see how everything worked.
One of the unique things about PhET is that it's research-based. Both in its design of the simulations, we draw from research across different areas.
They spend a lot of time testing, beta testing, and revising with students. And there's no substitute for that.
I'm very visual. I always picture the molecules bouncing around in that, and that's really how I think about what's happening in a system. So I find that PhETs match very well with the way I visualize what's happening in the system. I can show them what's in my head.
in a real circuit, they can only infer that electrons are flowing through wires by the brightness of the bulbs, but in the PhET sims, they can see the electrons.
One of the things that PhET allows that other things don't allow is when something spontaneously comes up in class and I can say, let's test it.
What happens when I put a light bulb or a battery in here? What happens when I put a pencil into this circuit?
We make the simulations highly interactive so that when students move a slider or create a different setting, they get immediate feedback as to the effect of making that change.
That is a really powerful way to learn. You learn what's important and what's not important.
We developed this saying in Physics 3, let's PhET it out. Like, some of us would disagree and we were like, well, let's just check the PhET.
Simulations allow you to go beyond what you can do in real life quickly.
Using computer simulations, we can slow down time. We can dive inside an atom.
I think PhET definitely provides real-world examples, things that in the classroom you can't see or get your hands on at all.
If we change planets or gravitational fields or time or the number of coils on a wire and see immediately what the impact of these are.
We really want to make things intuitive enough in terms of user interface so that when students sit down, they don't really need instructions in order to know how to use the simulation.
And when
Welcome back. So we don't want to spill the beans out of the bag because we know that our speakers are very here on ground to share more experience and throw more light about the importance of using simulations in the classroom. So I would like my speakers to come on stage now and then we'll get the conversation rolling. So welcome once again, Rebecca and Zach. We need to first of all start with what simulation really is to a layman's point of view. We are used to using textbooks and maybe just showing videos when we are teaching science, and then take students to the lab and then teach them a particular sequence in conducting an experiment. But simulation is quite new in Africa. So what really is simulation? What is simulation? I'm going to throw this question to Zach to answer.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nena. That's a wonderful question. So PhET simulations are a technology that offers effective ways for teachers to teach science and math at a low cost. We know that teachers and educational leaders across Africa grapple with limited resources for teaching science concepts. So PhET simulations are free, flexible tools that can be used in a variety of ways. For example, a teacher would challenge students to use a circuit construction kit simulation, get them to put batteries together, connect wires and light bulbs, and then they can figure out under what conditions are necessary to light up a bulb. They would then have to find out how to change the circuit to make the bulb light brighter and explain how that is related to the motion of electrons, which is something that is very difficult to achieve even if you went to a lab together with students and they had the physical batteries. So students can explore this game-like environment. They can create their own simulated circuits, and in the process, they can quickly learn the principles of electricity or whatever concept that they are learning.
All right, thank you so much. So, Rebecca, how has simulation helped students around the world? You've been running this program over and over again in different parts of the world. Can you share your experience with us? How it's been able to impact the academic performance of students from across the globe?
Sure. So yeah, PhET has been around now. This is our 20th year. So we've been doing this for quite some time. And it really started out as a very organic project. It actually began with Dr. Carl Wyman, the Nobel Prize winning physicist who started PhET. He initially started the project actually because he was trying to convey to people the physics that he was doing in his research, and he was trying to explain it to the general public and realized that it's difficult to think abstractly for many folks, especially if they don't have a foundation in physics. So that's where it began. It's about helping people to understand concepts, particularly those abstract concepts and those deep underlying natural principles of nature and mathematics. So in terms of being used worldwide, we've seen the numbers and the usage of PhET simulations actually double during many of the building closures because of COVID. So we know a lot about the need for these kinds of tools because there are many schools, let's say, where there just simply are not science materials or there aren't mathematical manipulatives. There's a lot of teaching that happens that's only pencil and paper. And as kind of was mentioned during the video, our goal is to help people to visualize things that we can't directly see, and also generally to support science and mathematics understanding. So our goal is not necessarily to say, don't use hands-on materials anymore. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, let's supplement it, let's support, and let's find those moments where there are certain things that are difficult to teach, like electrons flowing or energy in a system or what's happening in chemistry. It's just too small to see. And so having something that is a dynamic visual representation has been shown through lots and lots of research again and again across Africa and across many places around the world. We have really seen a lot of evidence that using either simulations or simulations in tandem with hands-on activities deeply supports students' conceptual understanding of science and mathematics.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. So I have a question about what you just said. Now, a school that doesn't have a laboratory, is PhET simulation useful to that kind of school? A school that is not that doesn't have a well-equipped science lab, is PhET simulation relevant for such school?
Absolutely. Yes, I mean, so there's many different aspects of PhET simulations where, I mean, honestly, it can support learning from early childhood years all the way up through the university level. And I know we keep using the example of the electric circuits, but it's really so versatile. You can work with a kindergarten child, and if you only have, let's say, a projector, you can project that up on the screen and talk with children about exactly what do you need in order to make a light bulb light, and what shape do the wires need to make in order for the light bulb to light. And then as you progress to the university level, you can go much more complex, series and parallel circuits, inductors, capacitors, all different kinds of things, quantifiable and not just qualitative analyses. So even if you have a classroom that only has a projector, there are many ways to engage students through prediction activities, through small group discussions. The other formats that we've seen being used in low resource environments is where perhaps students might have tablets or computers, or maybe if they don't, they can also use PhET simulations on their mobile phones. The other thing that is very helpful is we know some schools are simply not connected to the internet, at least perhaps not on a consistent basis. So all of the PhET simulations can be downloaded and can even be shared without a problem from student to student or across school districts on thumb drives or even on DVDs or CDs. So we are doing our absolute best to make sure that it's accessible in all kinds of contexts, regardless of the kind of technology or how much technology or laboratory equipment there might be.
Okay. So I would like to direct this question to Mr. Zach. I know that PhET can actually be used offline. How is that possible to use PhET without the internet as a teacher? What do you advise teachers to do, especially when they don't have enough internet access around the location where they teach?
Yeah, thank you. So there are a number of ways that teachers can use PhET simulations offline. The first one is that if they can be able to download the PhET simulation on their laptop and then they have it offline, And then when they go to class, they can access those PhET simulations offline and be able to lead a lesson, lead a discussion in a classroom setup. The second way to access PhET offline is through the PhET app. So on your phone, you can actually download the PhET application on your phone, and the teacher can access those PhET simulations. And if they are leading a lesson or they are preparing for a lesson, they can be able to explore and be able to prepare a lesson based on that PhET simulation that exists offline. The third way that I've seen teachers use is I've seen teachers like prepare just the way they would normally prepare for a lesson, but they would print out maybe a visual representing a concept, and then they go to class with that printout, and then they'll be able to display that printout to students or put them in small groups, and then they would have discussions around that. And then the last alternative that teachers can use PhET offline is that they can be able to download the individual simulations. They can download the HTML files on their machines, individual simulations, and just be able to play it within the classroom environment and lead a lesson using the PhET simulation.
All right, thank you so much, Zach. So it means that PhET is basically for both people who have technology, advanced technology, and those with little or no technology, little technology, because even printing paper is actually a form of technology. So that means that it's well needed in our African context, in our African educational space as well. Now, what are the impacts? Let's look at the academic impact of PhET. Can we say for certain that students who go on PhET are able to answer questions more appropriately during the exams? Are some of your tools and your worksheets, I know that PhET has worksheets for most of the simulations, are they geared towards helping students also answer questions appropriately in their exams?
So there's a couple of different ways to answer that question. Of course, every country is going to have different exams with different types of questions. But I would say I recently, thanks to the help of my colleagues across Africa, took a look at, I think, some 30 or 40 different papers that did studies, experimental studies comparing students who did traditional instruction with physical materials and students who did inquiry-based instruction using PhET simulations. And in every single paper that I read, there was a statistically significant increase that was greater than the traditional studies. So meaning that using the simulations and using inquiry approaches resulted in statistically greater improvements in learning over other forms of learning. So in that sense, I think we can absolutely say that using the PhET simulations is effective for student learning. The other thing to keep in mind is that all PhET simulations are developed based on education research. And there's really two ways we do that. The first thing that we do is we look at the literature to find out what are common student learning difficulties. Like you may have heard of the term misconception. Many students, for example, believe that under all circumstances, heavy objects will fall faster, that they will accelerate more quickly. And it's actually much more complicated than that. There's a lot of different things that influence how fast things fall when you're dealing with an environment that has air friction in it. So we know that students struggle with those ideas, and sometimes even teachers and adults in the general population struggle with these ideas. And so we build simulations that when students naturally interact and experiment with the simulations, it helps to correct those ideas in an automated way. It gives them the kind of feedback and the kind of scaffolding that they need in order to correct incomplete or perhaps wrong ideas. The second thing that we do is we do lots of interviews with students as we're developing the PhET simulations to make sure that we are not introducing incorrect ideas. So I think those are three answers that I can give. I can't really speak specifically to specific exam scores because it's very difficult to find Teachers who are using PhET simulations in a consistent way, many teachers pull different resources into their teaching, but we can absolutely say that PhET simulations do absolutely have that potential for increasing student understanding.
Wow, thank you so much, Rebecca. Then this is for our participants. If you have questions and you'd like to ask questions at this point, feel free to post in the comment section. If you're watching from YouTube or you're watching on Facebook or LinkedIn, just feel free to ask your questions. That's why we have the professionals here to address all concerns and questions. Now, I'll go straight to Zach. I know you promised me that you're going to do a live demo for us to see how PhET works. We're going to go in depth when the virtual workshop commences, but maybe let's just give our audience a little demonstration on how PhET works if you're ready. But before you do that, while you're getting set, someone has a question here. And the question says, Jesse Henry Oluwasegun says, I would like to know the subject simulation, the simulation covers, and the topics of which curriculum. So there's a question about what subjects does PhET simulation cover and what curriculum is basically used. I don't know if Zach would like to answer that question.
Yeah, thank you. I will answer that question as I share my screen. So yes, PhET does have simulations in the different subject areas. We have simulations in physics, we have simulations in chemistry, we have simulations in biology, we have simulations in math and the physical science. And also the PhET covers the different academic levels. We have simulations that can be used at from elementary level, high school, and even at university level. So I'm just going to share my screen, and then I'll take you to the PhET website so that you can be able to see how to access the PhET website and how you can access the PhET simulations. So I hope you can see my screen. If you can see my screen, you can see this is the website, phet.colorado.edu. And what this does, it actually takes you to the PhET website that has simulations. You can see we have more than 1.1 billion simulation runs. And we do have simulations in physics, chemistry, math, earth science, and biology. And these simulations, we can actually be able to filter them according to subject. If you are, for example, a physics teacher, you can simply select the physics simulations and you just have access to the physics simulations. You can, filter chemistry simulations. You can filter math simulations, biology. And also down here, you can see we have different grade levels. We have simulations in elementary school, high school, and also at university level. And also we have different technologies that I will not go into the details of that. And we also have simulations in local languages as well. So for example, in Nigeria, we do have simulations in Hausa. So you can access those simulations in your local language. So I'm going to show you 4 simulations. One simulation in biology, one simulation in chemistry, one simulation in physics, and one simulation in math. So let me start with a math simulation. Here is an example of a math simulation, and it is graphing quadratics. And down here, you'll see there is about section that gives some insights about the learning goals that you can be able to achieve using this PhET simulation. And here, if you need more resources, you can always go here and receive teacher tips. And at this section, you can also access other activities that have been developed by other teachers that are related to this PhET simulation. So let me just go ahead and open up the simulation. The simulation is graphing quadratics. And you can see when you open it, like it's very clean space. You can see a graph here. But on your right, you can see an equation, and then you have some buttons that can help you change the variables. So this particular simulation, for example, you can ask students to maybe predict what will happen if they change the coefficients of this graph, and be able to lead a very beautiful discussion about these coefficients. So this simulation is very interactive. You can move things around, and learners can see what happens if you change the coefficient of this x squared here. What is going to happen to the graph when I change the coefficient of this b? And learners can have discussions around this and be able to predict what is going to happen, and then just make changes to their reasonings. The next simulation that I would like to show is a chemistry simulation. Again, when you open the page, it shows you the same format, sample learning goals and teaching resources activities, but I'll go straight to the simulation itself. And this simulation is called a balancing chemical equation. Is a very interesting topic in chemistry. And basically here, the aim is for the learners to be able to balance this, the number of atoms and the number of molecules, so that we have a balanced chemical equation. So for example, learners can be able to, to move around things. They can put, this as the product, and they can see how many nitrogen atoms and molecules do they need to be able to balance this chemical equation. And it's very interactive and in a playful environment, so they can be able to to change this, maybe get it wrong and see what is going to happen if they get it wrong. If we change this to let's say 2, and change this to 1, and then they can see that they have two nitrogens, and then they have 3 molecules of hydrogen, and they can see feedback there, a very beautiful smile to show them that they have correctly balanced that chemical equation. And they can play around with it. They can separate things, and they can also have further chemical equations to try and play around with it. The third simulation that I would like to show is natural selection. And this is a biology simulation. And for example, here we can have an example learning goal where learners can experiment with environments to produce a stable population of bunnies, and see what dies out and what population takes over the world. So I'll just go ahead and launch the simulation, and then change a few variables, and then we see what happens. So the idea is for really the learners to be able to have discussions, to experiment, to explore, and see what's happening. So what happens if we we increase the number of the number of wolves in this population. Maybe we add another mate. We add another mate into this population, and we see what is going to happen if we have more wolves. Then all the bunnies die. And if I can start over again and just increase the number of maybe add a mate, and see over time what is going to happen. So as this is happening, you can see there's data that is being generated on this graph here, and students can be able to make observations on what is happening to the population. Is the population increasing? Is it reducing? And what happens if I introduce a wolf into this population? So they can be able to just try and understand by playing around with different variables, increasing dominant species of the bunnies, increasing the wolves, and limiting food, and just seeing what is happening. And they can analyze this data as well that is coming from this simulation. And the last simulation that I would like to show is the circuit construction kit. Earlier on, I mentioned about the ability of learners being able to play around with things, to connect and explore the electricity principle. So here, they can just be able to connect this, bring wires together, bring a source of power, and just have that source of power there, and bring another connection here. Maybe bring a switch at this point, have a light bulb, and have another connection here, and complete this. And they can be able to, for example, like close the switch to complete the circuit, so that the bulb can light, and they can see the direction of the electrons, how the electrons are flowing. And they can also try to see, like, what sort of conductors, for example, can be able to allow current to pass through. For example, if they bring a paper clip, and if they bring a paper clip and complete the circuit, will the bulb be able to light? What if they try with something different? For example, a piece of paper, for example. If they bring a piece of or coin, for example, if they bring a bill and connect here, will that bulb be able to light, and so forth and so on. So they can be able to experiment with different conductors. They can bring, for example, a pencil, for example, to see what if the circuit will be able to conduct electricity. And at this point, even before closing the switch, the teacher could ask learners to predict whether this pencil will be able to allow current to pass through or not. So they can complete that and be able to see the bulb lighting, and so forth. So they can be able to experiment. They can measure the amount of voltage that is passing across this bulb, for example, when the circuit is complete. So the idea is that these are like really flexible tools that allows both the teachers and students to be able to do whatever they would like to do, whether it's to to experiment, to explore, to learn, without necessarily being limited by the things that they can be able to do as teachers and as learners in a classroom environment. So I will maybe stop sharing the screen and just maybe take questions about the simulations from what I've shared and presented. Hello, Nena.
Okay. Questions. A lot of teachers have been asking questions and questions. I'll start with, let's see how far we can go with the questions. But I just want to assure us that EdVest is about to, is integrating with PhET, and you can find PhET on EdVest portals for our EdVest schools. And if you're not yet on EdVest, do join EdVest so that you get all these things at a very, very free cost. So I'll start with the first question. I know you've already said something about that, but just to reiterate, Bernard Miles says, I teach in grade 1. Is there simulation I can use to teach my students? Because I mostly do a lot of practical teaching. Rebecca, would you want to answer that?
I'd be happy to. So just like Zach showed, you can use that filter in order to find out which simulations are appropriate for which levels. And the reality is that many of the simulations actually have different levels within them, so they can be differentiated across grades. So I'm thinking for grade 1, we have a number of activities, a number of simulations that focus on simple algebra. So Make a 10 is one example. And I want to reiterate, having practical resources and using manipulatives is wonderful. And I hope you continue to do that, and also support and supplement with the PhET simulation. So, with Make a 10, basically there's many ways to find out how do you build units of numbers, basically. We also have another one, which is called Energy Skate Park, where children can look at they make like a little roller coaster, and they can learn about pie charts, and they can learn about different forms of energy. So I would say that, there are many. One thing you will note, so PhET was originally called Physics Education Technology, PhET. That's where the name comes from, because the focus, of course, started with a Nobel Prize winning physicist. So many of our resources started out as physics and also chemistry, and now we have a very wide range of resources in mathematics and are growing in others. But we're doing our best to work in the early years, and especially you'll be seeing development in mathematics in the coming months and coming years. Would you like us to continue with the other
geosciences
questions?
and yes, so I think that's part of social science, geography and earth sciences. So that should be part of social sciences as well, where you did the simulation on like I was saying, someone asked a question about how the app is useful in social sciences. And Zach, from your demo, you actually presented a simulation on population. And population is about geosciences and earth sciences. So that's an aspect of social sciences. So I think that answers the question. And then moving on, someone is also asking, how can you download the app? Well, like I said, we're here to announce a very strong partnership between EdVerse and PhET. And you can always get the app on EdVerse. You can always access PhET simulations on EdVerse as well if your school is using EdVerse. And then you can also go and find a way to navigate and know what to do. And we are also going to push for a virtual workshop after this webinar. As many of us who have registered, please, if you didn't register for this webinar, do try and register and keep us up so that we can keep you updated once the virtual workshop is ready to run. Now, someone is also asking a question, Zach. Can this be used in mass communication? Do you think any of the simulations is useful in mass communication?
So what I would say is that it really depends on how you design your lesson and your activity and the learning goal that you want to be achieved for that topic. I don't know topics in mass communication, but I would imagine if you're wanting to teach kids how they can communicate or write, they can work through a simulation and be able to explain a concept and be able to write about it. How do they make sense out of the simulation that they are playing with, and how they are reasoning about that particular simulation. But I'm familiar
Okay,
that
and then okay, yeah. So one more question about the first simulation. Someone is asking if it's applicable in mathematics. I think you also did that. You showed us, in fact, the first simulation you showed us was a math simulation on quadratic equation graph. So it's very powerful. And as a teacher, when I was a classroom teacher, I actually used PhET to teach my grade 1 students, my grade 3 students, and my grade 7 students in science. So it's very applicable for primary schools, junior secondary schools, senior secondary schools, high schools, and the like. And you can also use it to the university level. Like what Rebecca just explained, it's leveled. The activities and resources are leveled in such a way that it would meet the needs of all learners from age 5 and above. So I would like us to quickly go into a short break. Now, the short break, in the short break, we'll do like a live demo, just like what Zach has been doing, just for 2 minutes demo. And then when we come back, we'll be bringing in another guest who will talk more about the EdVerse PhET partnership and then the virtual workshop. Thank you. All right, so welcome back. I would like to invite Kolade to come up now and talk to us about the adverse. He's been very, 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 you know, lucrative in enhancing the PhET adverse partnership. So I don't know if Kolade is here right now. So Kolade will be giving us a brief description of why adverse started to partner with PhET and the relevance of this partnership. Hi,
Okay.
Kolade.
Yeah, hi. Okay, so the for us at Edvest, what we primarily do is to provide the infrastructure that schools use for tracking learning outcomes, for sharing homeworks, assignments between teachers and students, basically bringing the entire school management and learning management system to one platform. Now, for us, the reason why this partnership is critical is because we've been listening to our clients, to the teachers and the schools, school owners, and we've discovered that content to use to enhance learning outcomes for various subjects has been one of the key factors that impedes even being able to communicate with the students. So at EdVest and using this partnership, we want to bring tools that can make learning outcomes, specifically in STEM, much more effective in Africa. And even for schools that cannot afford to set up a full laboratory but are registered on EdVest, with our partnership, we're able to offer you the solution, the simulations for free on the EdVest platform. So what would you be able to do with your PhET simulations on EdVest platform? First, as a teacher, you would be able to go through and see all of the different simulations that are available, and then you would be able to select the particular simulation you want to use to teach. As a teacher, you'll be able to share those simulations with your students on the student portal on EdVest. You would also be able to use these simulations to come up with exam questions you can use for CBT. You can use on CBT. So you'll be able to use this for the CBT.
Hello, Kolade, are you there?
Okay, sorry, there was just a trip. I'm back. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I stopped at CBT. So for your computer-based test, which you can come up with on EdVest, you would be able to use a simulation, work together after you've gone through several training to be able to use it to create questions that students would be able to use to take CBT questions on EdVest. Same thing as a teacher, if you want to use the homework module on EdVest, you will be able to share PhET simulations for students to carry out their assignments and homework and be able to submit a report on that homework right on the EdVest application. And likewise, if you're developing your lesson plan on EdVest Basic, you'll be able to embed the PhET simulation as part of your lesson plans and to share the student copy for the students to review. Now you can be sure that now everything relating to your practicals that you want to do, you want to have a live class with the student on the virtual classroom on EdVest, you would be able to project your PhET simulations also for those live classrooms. Now, all of these resources are what we're bringing up with the partnership we're having with PhET. While the entire content has been built based from what you've seen Zach and Rebecca say, using world-class research to come up with these solutions. Now, you don't need to go and start searching for this content anywhere. You have them on EdVest Basic, and it's for free once you are registered as a school on EdVest. It's for free, irrespective of whatever plan you're using. So this is a new and exciting partnership for us that would help us to be able to break new barriers as we improve learning outcomes. Now, the simulation once your school is registered on EdVest, you can begin to reach out and we'll guide you through the moment that you can begin to set up. So of course, you have to go through the training because beyond just having access, there is a need to even know how to use this effectively. And that's why we're going to be having a partnership over the next couple of months that also involves training teachers Same thing, the trainings on how to use the simulations also will be offered for free. So thank you very much. We look forward to the exciting feedback we'll be getting as teachers engage with the simulations.
Thank you very, very much. I feel like flying like a bird because this is an exciting platform, and PhET has over 2,000 simulations already, if I'm not mistaken. And I know that a lot of teachers will benefit from all the simulations that PhET offers. Like we said, this is a partnership and it's going to be offered for free, including the virtual workshop. So I would like to call back our guest to give us a brief description about how the virtual workshop is, and then I'll also chip in what we'll be doing in EdVerse as well during the virtual workshop. Of course, the time for the workshop will be communicated to us via email, as many of us who have registered for this webinar and still want to be a part of the virtual workshop. So I'm Zach. Do you have anything to say about the virtual workshop?
Yeah, thank you. So the virtual workshop is an opportunity for teachers, educators, those who have used PhET simulations and those who have not used PhET simulations to really learn about the pedagogical strategies and that they can use with PhET simulations and also transfer the same knowledge to using other resources. So the workshop has got 4 different parts. We have an introduction to PhET, and the objective is to enable teachers to learn how to access the PhET simulations and identify which PhET simulations they can be able to use for which learning goals. They also learn about the features that make PhET simulations very powerful tool for teaching maths and science. The second part of the workshop is about whole classroom strategies. In Africa, we don't have the luxury of having, every student having a device or a computer. You'll have maybe a teacher is in the front of a class and is having maybe 80 students facing him, 100 students facing him. So in this part of the workshop, we introduce, the teachers learn about strategies for how to use the PhET simulations in whole classroom environment, where the teacher is either presenting or manipulating the simulations and then leading a discussion with the rest of the class as they interact and they share. Then the third part of the workshop is giving an opportunity to the teachers to really design sim-based inquiry activities, things like activity sheets and also lessons in whatever subjects that they are teaching, be it in biology, chemistry, math, or physics. And then the last part of the workshop is facilitating PhET simulation use. And this part really, the participants get to learn about how to design the sequence of activities that make PhET simulations meaningful as they interact with and they use the PhET simulations in their own classroom. And then they get an opportunity to plan a lesson, be able to try out that lesson in a classroom environment, and then see what has worked well, what has not worked, and then do a reflection of that lesson. And then as we complete that virtual workshop, the teachers have got an opportunity to make a poster session about the activities that they designed and then they did in class, and then reflect on, and then they have an opportunity to present to other teachers how they've been able to use the PhET simulations in the classroom. So it's a very intensive workshop. It's a combination of synchronous sessions, and also we have like teachers can get the resources, go work offline, and then come back and submit activities. They can watch videos. There's some readings to be able to do. So it's a very very rich workshop that can take about 30 to 35 hours of your time. But I'm sure everyone is going to benefit from that rich learning experience of the PhET virtual workshop.
Thank you so much, Zach. So you've heard it all. It's going to be a very engaging workshop. It's asynchronous because you'll be coming online for some sessions to have online virtual webinars like this, and then you also have time to pace your own learning as a teacher and go through the online virtual workshop, that is housed on PhET already. And then we'll also use that virtual workshop as a form of training on the part of EdVest, so that you can also see how you can link PhET tools or PhET simulations to EdVest tools. How can you use PhET simulation on the EdVest LMS platform through homework, CBTs, and lesson notes? And how can you also use it on the SMS platform of EdVest through formative assessment, your results, and then your various tests that you'll be giving the students as well. So these are all the things that we'll be discussing when we go on that virtual workshop. So as time goes on, we'll communicate with you. We'll keep you posted. We're going to be sending you emails and different information about the PhET workshop and the PhET training when it is time. So all we just need you to do is to always check for updates from us on EdVest on how the virtual workshop will be and when it's going to take place. And we believe that at the end of the virtual workshop, you have all the tools needed to become a better science and math teacher. Now, this PhET simulation is basically for science and math teachers. Please, let's take note of that. It's not for English teachers and it's not for arts teachers, please. But you can apply it, right? You can use some of the ideas from the simulation to create something, maybe a writing skill. It depends on you to create a writing skill or to teach students how to write, maybe an English teacher teaching students how to write informative writing and all that. So it depends on how you want to apply it. But the major reason why PhET was set up was to promote STEM-based learning. So let's take note of that as we look forward to the virtual workshop. Thank you very much, Rebecca and Zach, for coming online, for taking out time to talk to us about PhET, to tell us more about what we hope to benefit from PhET. Please, can I have my speakers online with me here? Okay, thank you very, very much. We're very grateful to you. And we know that with you, we're going to push for STEM-based learning in Africa and in Nigeria and other parts of the world. We also know that this is going to be an added solution to all the problems that science and math teachers face in trying to bring about applied learning in the classroom. So PhET simulation is changing the narrative of how students should understand abstract concepts, so that's one of the things that I love about PhET. So thank you very much for coming. Do you have a final word to give us before we call it a day? Rebecca?
Sure. I just wanted to say we're so excited about this partnership. We really do look forward to having lots of engagement from teachers in the virtual workshop because we know that, technology in and of itself doesn't solve problems. It's how people use technology. And so we are really excited to hopefully be a partner on that in multiple dimensions, giving you access to our technology, but also really supporting you in how to use it effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Zach, any final word?
Yeah, thank you so much. So PhET really desires to expand its reach to more teachers, more educators, and more learners, especially in Africa. And we really dream of the impact of PhET pedagogy that could have in schools and communities. So as PhET, we are committed to improving students' learning of math and science, improving teacher learning, and also professional growth among the teachers on our continent so that they can teach better. So thank you so much for providing that opportunity.
Thank you so much, Zach. And thank you to all participants who are joining us live on various platforms. We know that this is the first of the more expository sessions we'll be having soon. Please stay tuned and ensure you check your emails regularly for the dates that the virtual workshop will be starting. Thank you very much. This is Nena Okore, Director for Learning and Research EdVest. I'm happy to be here today and I wish you all a very good evening. Bye from now.
name is Ms. Latifa Ibrahim, Head of School, Lekki Muslim Nigerian Primary School, Lekki Phase 1, Lagos. Starting a school in Nigeria is a smooth one, although I understand that there are rules and regulations for every different organization. So at a school, I would advise you approach Lagos State Education Board. There you'd get the needed information to start up a school. And managing a school, I would always advise school owners around me to always reiterate their vision and mission. And then when you have challenges, you can always take that to help you out. I heard about EdVest through the IT personnel, that's Mrs. Adigun, who attended one of your trainings. Since we started using this EdVest platform, I have been so particular about one outstanding result, and that has been with our result management. Before then, it's been a whole lot for us, but since EdVest came on board, we've always had a smooth result management, and it's outstanding. I appreciate that. Experience with EdVest, I just have a word. It's been all encompassing. Like every aspect of the school is been captured, and it's been smooth all along. For now, in all sincerity, I've always had issues with doing a lot more of paperwork. But since we had EdVest on board, or we boarded EdVest platform, it's been a smooth one. It's been paperwork reduced, even to the least thing you can ever expect of a school. And yes, EdVest has been there for us. Technology, like I always tell people around me, is here, and it's going to be advancing by the day. So for every school owner, we should know that it's going to affect every aspect of our teaching and learning. And for LMNPS, that's the Lekki Muslim Nigerian Primary School, it has helped to enhance learning and teaching, education infused with technology. You can say an acronym of EduTech. It has come to stay. And then we all need to adopt it and know that it will get to a point where we'd all have an enhanced self-learning tools with education on board, with technology on board. Then we're good to go. What are you still waiting for? What are you doing? EdVest is the best that you can ever have as a school. So go on board EdVest, use EdVest today.
EdVest is Africa's leading digital educational platform, which enables administration, communication, finance, teaching, and learning beyond the classroom. EdVest allows you as a parent to access and track your child's academic reports and personal growth at any time, giving you a better understanding of your child's academic performance.
Have a nice day at school.
We give you the security and reassurance you need to excel in your daily activities and manage your financial obligations to your child's education. EdVest provides an administrative and management system which enhances accountability, teamwork, and growth needed for a thriving organization. Which brings perfect results. Teach creatively, learn effectively, track your child's performance easily, and do so much more with EdVest. EdVest, digital education. Visit www.edvest.net to get started now.